Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed.
January 5th, 2024.
Alcida has just been released from prison. Candice Owens already sees right through her and predicts exactly what is happening. The darkness coming to light for all to see.
Gypsy Rose Blancharde. If you're like me and you were not following this at all, then you realize how big this case and this story has become because Gypsy has now been released from prison. Now that she is out, she is doing the rounds, giving interviews. But I think what is compelling to a lot of people is a level of celebrity that she achieved while she was in prison. She had tons of offers to do photography now, to strip, to make real money in the world because people are interested in her. And of course, there's some perverse angle here that seems to be happening. Beyond that is the fact that while she was in prison, she apparently fell in love, and not with her boyfriend that killed her mother. Now she's done with her boyfriend. He's serving life in prison, and she has moved on in her life. And here's what she has to say about that.
Well, I'm sure that we both have a lot of regrets. All I can really say is that I did my time. He's doing his time for his part. And I wish him well on his journey.
Yeah, that's quite the journey. He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. But what I find interesting is this sort of Oprah rebrand that seems to be happening, where the media is maybe perhaps a little too sympathetic to her and her story. This is them almost glamorizing her new relationship. It feels especially hopeful. Take a listen.
We've talked about starting a family. We just don't know when at this point.
Incorrect.
Our lives are pretty hectic right now.
So this is your happily ever after, the gal who liked being a princess.
It is, yeah. I had to kiss a couple frogs to get to this one. Get some face.
I don't know, guys. There's something about this that just gives me the ick. Maybe it's also the fact that she is posting on Instagram about how people are jealous of her husband, the person that you just saw, because of his D. She's talking about how good the D is with her husband. That doesn't exactly seem normal. So here is my take on the situation. What happened to Gypsy Rose Blancharde throughout her childhood is abhorrent. It's awful. But just because something bad happens to someone when they are a child does not mean that we should dismiss the obvious signs that there is now something wrong with them. There is now something wrong with them. At the age of 23 years old, devised a plan to kill her mother. They didn't have to do that. Why didn't they just devise a plan to go to the police? I don't know that you can come back from something like that. It is obviously going to remain to be seen if she can turn her life around. I certainly hope that she does, but I think that people right now are falling in love with the Hollywood narrative, wanting to believe that she's going to skip into the sunset, where to me, it seems like there is something dark there. So I am not a Gypsy Rose Blancharde stan. As everybody else seems to be. The Hulu treatment does not convince me that this is necessarily a good person. And I think that there is probably going to be some trouble with her down the line. I hope I'm wrong. I hope she turns around. I hope she finds God.
Incorrect.
But something tells me that there's a little something off with this. This is definitely not the end. I think this is actually the beginning of the Gypsy Rose Blancharde story.
Just coast, just coast.
Just coast, just coast, just coast, just coast. Just coast.
Welcome to the show.
So what do we know about Gypsy Rose and this whole case so far? What have we learned? What do we know? What are the facts that we actually know? Well, definitely number one, we can say for a fact that we know Gypsy Rose is a liar, right? We know that she came up with a plan to kill her mom. She sexually seduced Nicholas Godejohn, love bombed him, and convinced him her mother was going to be the way to their freedom and to establish their funky ass relationship for the rest of their lives, right? We know that Dee Dee's dead. We know that she was stabbed. We know that Nicholas Godejohn did the actual crime and that Gypsy was in the bathroom. We know that they were caught within days, very, very few days of it happening, and that Gypsy served 10 years in prison and that Nicholas Godejohn will be serving the rest of his life in prison. He has had an appeal. and it was denied. Those are facts that we know for sure. How much of the Munchausen by proxy syndrome was actually true, we will not know. But according to people who at that time knew the details of the case, spoke to the detectives about it, I mean, these people are professionals for a reason, and they did their job, and their conclusion was Munchausen by proxy for a fact. I don't disagree. And it's one thing that, now that people have attained these records, now that Into the Weeds has exposed all of this amazing footage, which, by the way, shout out to Into the Weeds. God bless those women, because according to Mike Stanfield, one of the detectives from the case, there's over 100 CDs of evidence, and it's very expensive to obtain that evidence. I've recently submitted requests for my own records for this case because I want to get the footage myself. I don't want to have to wait for it to be sprinkled out, like chicken feed to the internet. I want to see it myself, and I want to be able to dissect it, and I want to be able to investigate it, and I just want to be able to organize it on my own, because right now, my desktop is a nightmare because of all of the footage that I have saved. So that being said, I have obtained some records from Greene County Clerk myself. It was nothing important, nothing worth reporting on. It was just the transcript from one of the trials. And I'm in the middle of waiting for the CDs with all the video footage and everything else, all the goodies. So while we are getting, tidbits of information from Into the Weeds as we go, I got the case file from Into the Weeds, and it has everything from the very beginning of the investigation to all of the stuff that was obtained for evidence. And what I find so interesting about it is I read it all last night before I went to bed. And it's one thing when we all get sprinkled information and tidbits about the story here and there on the internet, but it's another when you actually sit and read the actual investigator's report. And so I'd like to read directly from the case file so that we can have a clearer understanding, because I think that there's a lot of questions that people still have that are actually answered in this case file. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to break this up into a couple different videos because it's a lot. One of the first reports that I wanted to discuss was the CPS visit. So I wasn't aware that this had happened, and I'm not sure if y'all are aware. I'm sure y'all know everything. Y'all probably know way more than I do. But if you don't, I would like to read this report from DFS when they came out to see Gypsy at that home, at the same home that the crime happened. One of the questions that I've had for a long time with this case is, how did the doctors let this happen? How did these doctors get convinced this child has these conditions and these ailments and continue with these procedures?
2020 did a full investigation of the case and released a documentary called Gypsy's Truth and Lies.
The biggest question was, though, how was Dee Dee able to calm the doctors?
Hospitals we contacted declined to comment, but we tracked down one of her former neurologists, Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein.
For my initial assessment, I saw a girl, a 14-year-old girl that was sitting in a wheelchair,
who examined her for muscular dystrophy and cerebral palsy and immediately saw red flags.
The testing didn't seem to show the same type of disabilities that Gypsy should be showing.
There was nothing there to support either. It made me very suspicious.
And his suspicion only grew when he told Dee Dee what should have been exciting news. Gypsy's prior diagnoses were wrong.
But the mother was not happy with that. And when she left the office in a storm and told my nurses that I don't know what I'm talking about, and that she's not coming back.
Dr. Flasterstein ultimately said, I believe that the mother suffers from Munchausen by proxy. That was one of the things that I believe he bolded and underlined in that letter.
When you have a suspicion and you think that harm has been caused to the child, you could report that to social services and say, I have a suspicion. I, at the time, did not think that I had enough information just to call.
Dr. Flasterstein didn't call Child Protective Services, but someone else later did. According to this police report obtained by 2020, a doctor alerted authorities when he could not find any symptoms that support what Dee Dee alleges to be wrong with her daughter. 2 caseworkers later did visit the Blancharde home, but they found nothing out of the ordinary and closed the case.
Here we go. On June 16th, 2015, I was assigned to Jessica Clayton, an employee of the Child Advocacy Center, located at 1033 East Walnut, Springfield, Missouri. I made phone contact with Clayton. She advised she had read about the Blancharde case online, and she remembered assisting with a call involving Claudinia and Gypsy Blancharde in 2009 when she was employed with the Missouri Division of Social Services Children's Division. So this is the Detective Fletcher, and he is talking about how Jessica Clayton had seen the case and remembered that she had actually visited the home of Gypsy and Dee Dee for a DCS case. And now they're speaking, and this is the actual police interview. Clayton recalled being asked to assist another CD investigator, Children's Division, with a hotline they received at 2301 West Volunteer Way in Springfield, Missouri in the fall months of 2009. Clayton advised Greene County deputies responded with them to this location. Clayton reported the Missouri child abuse hotline they received stated Gypsy was reported to be 17 or 18 years old, but was actually older than that. The allegations included claims of Gypsy being a victim of Munchausen by proxy at the hands of her mother, Claudinia. Clayton stated the allegation stated it was believed Claudinia was using Gypsy to get funds, and it was believed they were not actually victims of Hurricane Katrina, as they told everyone. Clayton advised that Dee Dee was unable to provide a social security card, birth certificate, or any medical records showing Gypsy's actual medical conditions. So Dee Dee was like, I don't have a social security card, a birth certificate, or medical records showing Gypsy's actual medical conditions. Clayton stated she was not the primary CD investigator in this case. So the person giving the interview to this investigator says she wasn't the primary investigator, but remembered the case being closed as unsubstantiated, as they were unable to prove any of the allegations being made. Clayton reported she had contacted Heather Ford, who is the circuit manager for the Greene County CD office, and requested Ford attempt to locate the CD report for this incident. I contacted Ford by phone, who advised the CD report had already been purged from their system, as it's CD's policy that all unsubstantiated reports are expunged and cleared from their system after 5 years has passed. Ford asked that I submit a written request for information regarding this investigation, and she would have the archived information checked to see if any reports or information still existed that she could provide for this incident. A check of the Greene County Sheriff's Office records database showed a report was entered on October 26, 2009 by Deputy Greene. This report listed Gypsy Blancharde as the victim, listing her date of birth as July 27, 1991. The report listed Dee Dee Blancharde as the suspect. The address of occurrence in the report was listed as 2301 West Volunteer Way, Springfield, Missouri. The narrative of the report reads as follows. On October 26, 2009, I was dispatched to their address to meet with DFS and speak with an individual in regards to a child at that location. I arrived on scene and made contact with DFS caseworkers Jessica Clayton and Marlena Sorensen. Sorensen informed me that there is a child identified as Gypsy Rose Blancharde residing at the address with her mother, Claudine Blancharde. DFS advised that Claudine claims her daughter is paralyzed from the waist down. So Dee Dee told DFS on October 26th of 2009 that her daughter is paralyzed from the waist down, has MS, cancer, and other medical issues. According to the DFS hotline call, St. John's Hospital contacted DFS and informed them that a doctor has checked on Gypsy and her alleged medical issues that Claudine claims Gypsy has. According to DFS and the hotline call, a doctor could not find any symptoms that would support what Claudine alleges to be wrong with her daughter. According to the hotline, Claudine provided different personal information on Gypsy. Due to the inconsistent birth dates and lack of medical diagnosis, DFS wanted Gypsy checked on to ensure she was not an endangered runaway or missing juvenile. They also wanted to ensure that Claudine was the biological mother to Gypsy, because what mother would do that to their child? DFS and I made contact with Claudine and Gypsy and spoke to them about the situation. Claudine stated they are from Louisiana and left there during Hurricane Katrina and came to the Springfield, Missouri area. When confronted about all the inconsistent information that she had provided to the hospital, Claudine stated she didn't know why the birth dates and personal information were wrong. So she's lying even more. Not only is she lying about Gypsy's condition and the state that she's in, but she's now lying that she didn't know that the birth dates and personal information were wrong. After further investigation, it was found that Claudine had a bad marriage and got a divorce. Due to her fear of her ex-husband, Claudine had changed her daughter's information at the hospital so that her ex-husband would not be able to find them. So more lies. Now Dee Dee's telling this DFS worker that she had a bad marriage and a horrible divorce, that she was in fear of Rod, Gypsy's dad, and that all of a sudden she does remember that she changed the information at the hospital, and it was because she didn't want Gypsy's dad to find her or find them through their medical records. Big lies. Big lies. Claudine and Gypsy were checked through Mules and NCIC with negative results. Claudine was positively identified by her Missouri driver's license, and Gypsy was positively identified by a Social Security card provided to me by her mother. All of a sudden, a Social Security card pops up? It was further determined that Gypsy was 18 years of age and does suffer from some type of a mental handicap. Well, we sure know that, huh? While on site, it was apparent that Gypsy is being attended to reference her personal and physical needs. While on site, it was apparent that Gypsy is being attended to reference her personal and physical needs. That sentence doesn't make sense to me, but DFS and I cleared the scene without further incident. Following the written request for information I submitted to Heather Ford with CD, I received an email from her on July 10th, 2015. The email stated all archived records had been checked and no information had been located regarding the 2009 CD case involving Gypsy and Dee Dee Blancharde. Why would they go into the house where they're doing an investigation? I mean, I guess these people aren't professional investigators, although I don't know what going to school and to be a social worker entails. I know they make a lot of money, so I'm sure there's some sort of intense schooling. Why would they go into the house and be like, well, we've got reports that you're making fake, that you're telling doctor. Why would they tell her that? You would think as a social worker that you would have to learn what the actual symptoms are of Munchausen by proxy. And I would say that the number one, without being a professional, I would think that the number one symptom of having Munchausen by proxy is lying. So why would they go into this situation and just give her all of the information and then expect her to just be honest? Within this one report, we saw 3 different paragraphs of lie after lie after lie. Why would they I would just have approached it a completely different way. I would have gone in there and I would have asked for information, and then, she doesn't need to know why you're there. I mean, maybe it is the law. Maybe they are supposed to tell. I don't know. I just would have approached it a different way. So anyway, this is the copy of the report, Check Well-Being. I just found that very interesting. So my point is that this information is fact. This is another fact that we can say is real. This report really happened with professional people that work for the government, work for the system, work for the courts, work for the government, essentially. And that we can see proof right here that Dee Dee did lie about her daughter. But what we also see is Gypsy not speaking up, not pulling them aside, not stopping them and saying, hey, I don't believe I have any of these. What we see right here is proof that Dee Dee was lying about her, was trying to convince doctors that she had conditions that she didn't have. Doctors were very concerned to the point where they were like, we don't even know if she's actually the real mom, which doesn't even look like they brought up, but okay. And that Gypsy is playing right along. Gypsy is not reaching out for help. Gypsy is not saying a word. So this is what we have proof of, because it would have been in that report if Gypsy had pulled them aside and said, hey, this isn't right. I don't think I'm sick. I can walk, blah, blah, blah. No, she played right along and then acted however she acted to where they were like, well, it's obviously she's mentally handicapped. I just think that's hilarious. Mental handicapped is not funny. Them calling Gypsy that is hilarious because we all know that she's not mentally handicapped. Okay, this is the next point I want to bring up. So we've all wondered, how could Gypsy have only gotten 10 years when we have all of this evidence, all of this footage, all of these videos of her showing her multiple personalities, completely convincing an innocent person to murder her mother? How could they have seen all of this evidence and all of these videos of her with all her wigs and all her different personalities, and still she only got 10 years? And so I've wondered, did they know about this? I mean, it's all in evidence, so they had to have known. How much of it did they process and did they take it into account? Well, we can see exactly what their perspective on it was and still gave her 10 years. And here's how it goes. The supplemental report, Greene County Sheriff's Office, 614, remarks. Okay, so report time was January 27th, 2016. Video from Gypsy's cell phone videoing herself to Nicholas. Report. Investigator Hancock, whom we've all seen in all the videos. He's the one who was speaking to her initially when she came into the police, when she was first arrested, and he was telling her that her mother was dead and yada yada. That's Hancock. I was notified by Springfield Police Department computer forensic analyst Michael Costello in reference to audio video footage he located involving Gypsy Blancharde. The audio video was 15 minutes long. The following is a summation of the recorded audio video of Gypsy Blancharde. It is not intended as a transcript or exact text of the recording. Now, keep this in mind. We've all had the pleasure or displeasure, however you want to look at it, of seeing all of these disturbing videos that she filmed for Nick, right? So much of it that it's hard to process almost. Yet this forensic analyst, which, it's Michael Costello's job to forensically analyze this computer data, all of this information, all of this evidence that they've retrieved for the case, and finds the most significant things, right? So here we all are watching all these videos and we're all like, trying to find like the most significant things when we have a professional right here who did just that. In this audio video, Gypsy appears in what looks like a black in color jacket with a red wig, addressing it to Nicholas from Gypsy, calling him sir. She states, "Hi, sir, this is Ruby, and I'm making this video as an introduction video." Gypsy admits Ruby is the most evil side of her. Now, we all know which video this is. She's in the bathroom. She's acting like, she's hard. Ridiculous. Gypsy stated in the audio video, she likes to get into trouble and she's not sorry when she gets caught. Gypsy stated her caring was broken, and she was not scared of law enforcement, but she would be scared of Nicholas's evil side. Gypsy stated she would do anything with Nicholas to include murder, rape, and assault. Gypsy tells Nicholas if at any time a girl tried to become his girlfriend, she would kill them with pleasure, and there would be lots of gore and blood. Gypsy stated if a girl was trying to get with Nicholas for sex, she might allow it. But if the girl tried to get with him as a girlfriend, she would kill her, and they could kill her together. Gypsy goes on to say how if it were family members murdered, she would not be so brutal, and she would have to step back and let him handle it. Gypsy stated she would allow Nicholas to rape her anytime he wanted to, but not physically assault her, but she was okay with rough sex and rape sex. Gypsy talked about the romantic side of Ruby and how Ruby was not touchy-feely. However, Kitty, Candy, and Bella were the romantic sides of her. Gypsy stated in this audio video she was very good at stealing and talked about how they could steal bigger things together. Gypsy talked about how she was very good at planning things. Damn Skippy. Gypsy said she liked to cause mischief and mayhem, but Nicholas would have to put her in charge of all the planning. Gypsy stated she comes up with very bad ideas, and then she referred to her bad ideas as robbery, rape, vandalism, and stealing vehicles. The remainder of the video, Gypsy talked about her and Nicholas bonding when they could finally be together. Other than the above-mentioned statements, there was nothing else of evidentiary value on the audio-video footage. A copy of the DVD was attached to this report and was logged into evidence. It should be noted the DVD will only play using a Dropbox account. So, they're well aware. They're well aware of her multiple personalities, her coercion, the fact that she's the planner, the fact that this was all of her idea, the fact that she is telling Nicholas about all these, disturbing sexual things. And they're right here in plain text. We now know as a fact that they were well aware of everything. This is a seriously disturbed person, and they are well aware of it. So the question still remains, why only 10 years, I think also when I ask myself that question, why only 10 years, and about how, we've heard people saying, that were around at that time, she was the princess of handicapped people or whatever. Everyone knew her as like the poster child for smiling, happy handicapped people. So she was treated like that. It was too much for people's minds to process in such a short amount of time. From all of those years of knowing her as the person who everyone loves and adores and feels sorry for because she's got such an amazing, happy personality. She's so sick and she's so happy, to a homicide turned into a court case very quickly. I think it was too much for their minds to process. But honestly, it's like you watch one of those damn Demona videos and you're disgusted immediately. So after they killed Dee Dee and they went to Nicholas's house, this is a whole entire interview that Hancock did with Charles Goldammer. Charles is the stepfather to Nicholas Godejohn. So anyway, they interviewed him. So this talks about how Charles knew that Nicholas had received money from Gypsy through the mail. He didn't know how much it was, but it was probably a few $100s. He knew because he saw the money, he saw the cash Nicholas had on him. On June 9th, 2015, Nicholas had called a taxi cab to pick him up at the residence in Wisconsin and took him to Greyhound bus station. Nicholas called and told Charles he was in Springfield, Missouri. This was on June 9th. He could not remember the exact time, but he knew it was late at night. The first time Charles said he talked to Gypsy, this is Nicholas's stepdad, was when she had come downstairs to make some macaroni and cheese. The conversation was very short, and they talked about how she had made the macaroni wrong. Gypsy and Charles had talked about how her mom had cooked macaroni, and this is where she learned how to cook it. So there she is, blaming shit on somebody else again. I swear. It was a very short conversation between the two of them. Charles said he was freaked out by Gypsy because she was wearing a black wig with some red tint in it. Charles told me Gypsy had no problems walking up and down the stairs in his house, and she never needed assistance or help in doing anything. They were constantly having sex, and Charles had to tell them to be quiet. Can you imagine being Nicholas's parents and hearing Gypsy and Nick doing whatever the hell, having disturbing bondage sex in the next room? And Charles is like, excuse me, can you keep it down? I don't know what's going on in there, but it's a lot of like, gross. Okay? Gross. You guys are rude. Anyway, we're going to save the rest for the next video, but I'm just trying to get out the truth. I just want to get the dirt. I just want the hot tea, and I want to give it to you. So join me for the next video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notification bell so that you know when I come out with the next video. It'll probably be tomorrow. We're trying to get to the facts of everything. We're going to expose this little freak, and we're going to have fun doing it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. So we all know Gypsy is claiming microdeletion bullshit. I've always thought that that was a lie. Of course, we know everything she says is a lie, so what would make this any different?
Not only can Gypsy walk, she says she's never been sick. Not cancer, not epilepsy, not anything.
The only thing that I have wrong with me is I have a little bit of a lazy eye. Not all the time, but I have better vision in this eye than I do that eye.
Just to the show.